So we are at our last group of vertebrates, the mammals. As a quick reminder, we are looking at this vertebrate phylogeny. So we start out with our vertebrate group. We went through our gnathostomes, which are the jawed vertebrates, and then the osteichthyans. These are our bony fishes. So there are two types of bony fishes, the ray-finned and the lobe-finned. And then tetrapods evolved out of the lobe-finned fish, who were already evolving a sort of wrist-like, hand-like structure that was going to be perfect for walking and supporting organisms as they moved out of water and onto land. From there, we moved into our tetrapods. We've got our amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Our reptiles and mammals fall into the amniote category, and then finally we get down to our mammals. As another reminder for the upcoming exam, make sure that you know the important characteristics that define each of our branches for our phylogenetic tree. You should have handouts for the vertebrates, invertebrates, and then also plants that we went through in the last couple of chapters. So our mammals are the milk-producing amniotes. Remember that the amniotes are categorized by having an egg in a protective shell. So the reptiles that we talked about already have a hard shell or a leathery shell, and then we talked about the different characteristics of that egg. Mammals have an amniotic egg, but it is fully enclosed inside the mother. So this is found inside the uterus. Fertilization happens internally, and then the fertilized egg implants into the uterus. And then the egg and the uterus provide all of the nutrients that that organism is going to need for development. So our amniotes evolved, one branch of our amniote group evolved into the mammals. The mammals evolved a little bit earlier than birds. So if we look back at our phylogeny over here, we've got our split with our mammals. And then out of our reptile group, we get our snakes, lizards, dinosaurs, birds, all of those guys. So the mammalian group's a little bit older than our bird group. They appeared about 225 million years ago. A few chapters ago, we talked about the KT event. This was the big meteor that hit the Yucatan Peninsula, brought about the end of the dinosaurs, and ushered in a time where there was not a lot of sunshine. It got really cold because there was a lot of ash and dust that was kicked up by this meteor that hit the Yucatan Peninsula. So that killed a lot of plants, which killed a lot of our herbivore dinosaurs, our really big animals. And then once the herbivores died, then the carnivores died as well. So mammals at that time were very small, probably all rodent size or very, very close to rodent size. And so when the dinosaurs became extinct, mammals basically expanded into the environments and the niches that those dinosaurs had previously occupied. And from there, they had a really quick expansion into a diverse set of environments, diverse set of characteristics. So from that, we get a whole bunch of differences in body size and body form. So if you think about all the mammals that you know of course they're tetrapods, so they have 4 limbs, but there's a huge variety of their physical characteristics. So if you think about insects, which is our largest category of animals, they all kind of look similar. We do get some differences in structure of their exoskeleton, their wings, their coloring, and things like that, but in general they all kind of look the same, whereas our mammals are a bit more diversified, and that is related to the environments that they were able to expand into. But that was also related to some of the genes that were coming up as mammals were evolving. So in spring 25 semester, we are not going to get to our animal tissue section. In that, we were going to talk about something called the Hox gene. Hox genes are a set of genes that direct the development of organisms. And all animals have these Hox genes, but vertebrates have a lot of Hox genes, and mammals have even more than some of our other vertebrates. So they have these genes that have sort of accumulated and duplicated over evolutionary history that has led to this diversity in form and physical characteristics. So we're not going to go through all of the mammalian orders. Table 27.2 provides a list if you are interested. Not going to go through them, but you all are probably familiar with most of these groups. If you happen to be interested, your textbook's a great reference for these guys. So key features of our mammals, the main one, the one that defines them, are the mammary glands. So these are glands on the front of the females, or I should say the ventral side, not the front, the ventral side of females that secrete milk for their newborn mammals. So mammals are also characterized by live birth, and most mammals need a significant amount of care. When we get to our ecology unit, we'll talk about what that looks like. But if you think about some of our insects, some of our reptiles, they don't provide any care for their babies. They lay their eggs and they leave them. Birds provide some care for a short while, but usually not for very long. Mammals provide a wide range of care for their babies, and this is partly related to the babies being tied to their mother by newborn milk. At this point, I always get the question about some birds producing what we call crop milk. This is not the same thing. If you've never heard of crop milk, there are a few birds, including pigeons and doves, that have this substance that they secrete and regurgitate up for their babies. So the crop is a structure that's present in some birds. It helps in digestion, and in some specific birds, that crop produces this milky substance that is also nutrients for their babies. That comes from the digestive tract, not from the mammary gland. So that's why we don't put birds in this group, even if they do produce this air quotes crop milk. The other defining characteristic of mammals is hair. So you all have hair of some sort. All mammals have hair. Some have more than others. There's a lot of different reasons for hair. The main one is that it is an efficient insulator. So mammals are endothermic, which means they maintain their temperature internally, as opposed to ectothermic, which are organisms that rely on environmental control of their metabolic processes. So hair acts as an insulator for the heat that is produced at the cellular level and helps maintain animal body temperature. But there are some other reasons for hair as well. So if you think about whiskers on your cat and many other animals, these are hairs that are evolved to help with sensing their environment, so to help animals get information about what's going on around them. Some hair is evolved for camouflage, so we've got an example of that cat up at the front, or I'm sorry, at the top, kind of camouflage within its environment there. I'm sure you can all think of lots of examples of mammal camouflage. And then defense. So for example, we've got these quills on the crested porcupine. So mammals also have specialized teeth. We did a lab earlier in the semester where we looked at the different layouts of or a dental plan of different types of mammals. So we can learn a lot about a mammal and their environment by the different types of teeth that they have. So there's some examples here. So the front incisors are usually there for grabbing. Depending on the organism, they're grabbing different things. So for that beaver that we've got there, that's for grabbing sticks, pulling up branches, things like that, but then also for gnawing. Incisors in our carnivores are usually for gripping, ripping, and tearing to help pull meat off of bones and whatnot. Canines are also present for the same thing, for biting into their food source and holding it there, helping with the ripping. Premolars and molars, these are the flatter teeth in our mouths that are more towards the back. These are for grinding. So these are going to be present in animals that have a diet that requires crushing or grinding, like our herbivores, horses, cows, things like that. And then we also have some very specific adaptations. So for example, down there on the bottom, we've got that dolphin. They've got small pointy teeth. Those are going to be there for grasping, biting onto fish, biting their prey, etc. And then we also have teeth that are modified for defense. So those tusks on that elephant there, those are there for defense, but also to help sort of dig up plant material in their environment. So lots of different ways that teeth have evolved in mammals to help diversify them into different environments. We also have, mammals, have an enlarged skull. This is to help protect our enlarged brain. So generally our mammals are relatively smart compared to other organisms, and that's directly related to the larger brain. Because of that, we also see some sort of social characteristics of mammals. Mammals are, some of them are highly social, provide a lot of care to their young, and so this is related to that bigger brain. We also have a single lower jawbone, so this is compared to some of our fishes and other organisms that have different jaw structures related to their evolutionary history. And then we also have a specialized set of bones in our ear that helps with our hearing. So some of our cranial bone structures are just a little bit different than the other amniotes. There are three major groups of animals, or three clades of animals. The first are the Prototheria, or as you probably more familiar with the term monotremes. These are our egg-laying mammals, so there are not a lot of these. These guys are kind of weird. There are actually only 5 species of these guys, 1 species of platypus, and 3 species of echidnas. So echidnas have similar characteristics to like an anteater. They have a long nose, a long tongue. Their primary diet is insects, and so they stick that long tongue into holes. Some of them eat different types of insects, but most of them like sort of the burrowing colony organisms like ants and termites. Duck-billed platypus are generally eating aquatic invertebrates. So these guys are also technically predators, but they don't have a lot of teeth in there. We do actually have a platypus skeleton in the classroom, which is pretty cool. So these guys lay eggs, which is a little bit odd for a mammal. They don't have a placenta. They don't need one because these are external. But just like our reptile and bird eggs, they're going to have that egg that is full of nutrients for their developing young. So we've got the metatherians, or the marsupials. So historically, these guys were widespread. Now they are mostly confined to Australia, New Zealand, and surrounding locations. So these guys are characterized by having a pouch. So they birth really, really tiny, underdeveloped fetuses, and then the fetus will crawl into those pouches, kind of depending on their location. They kind of crawl up and crawl in, and then inside the pouches are the nipples and mammary glands for them, and then they complete their development in the pouch rather than internally in the uterus. So there's a couple of examples here. You all are probably familiar with the wallabies and kangaroos. So wallabies, just a small kangaroo, and we've got that little joey there on the front. Most of these guys, as I said, are in Australia, but North America does have one, the opossum. That's down there on the bottom. The opossum and the Tasmanian devil bear, these guys have pouches that are actually rear facing. So the babies kind of crawl in and out from the back rather than the front, like on that kangaroo there. And then finally, we've got our eutheria. These are the placental mammals. So these guys are developing fully inside the mom in the uterus, nourished by the placenta. So the placenta is kind of acting like all of the different regions that we saw in the bird egg, providing nutrients, providing a way to release waste from the organism that is developing. Mammals usually have a prolonged gestation. This means that the developing fetus takes a long time and also takes a lot of energy from the mom. Just as sort of a bit of trivia or so, up there in the middle is the gestation period for our mammals. These guys have a longer gestation period based on size. So the little tiny ones, our little rodents, have a small or short gestation period, and then as we get to larger mammals, that gestation period gets a little bit longer. So we're about to start our ecology unit, and we're going to talk about energy trade-offs quite a bit, how organisms have to spend energy on certain characteristics, certain behaviors, but it's a trade-off for survival. So this prolonged gestation period is important because it allows organisms to essentially kind of guarantee that their offspring are going to survive. So usually mammals have a small number of offspring compared to other organisms. If you think about insects laying thousands of eggs, or some reptiles laying 50, 60 eggs, our mammals usually have a small number. So even if you think about something like a litter of puppies, or maybe they have 10 or 12, this is still a relatively small amount. And by having internal gestation, this is taking a lot of energy out of the mom, but basically ensuring that survival. And then, as I mentioned, mammals usually provide a lot of maternal care. Again, this is energy trade-off. If you are putting energy investment into growing your offspring and taking care of them after they are born, then you are essentially ensuring that they are going to survive, that you are going to be passing on your offspring.